that we can, as African groups or at regional level, creating that, fostering international, regional collaborations and partnership can also help us, give us the platform where we can be able to raise a lot of financial resources to tackle the degradation of our rich land-based ecosystem surface. And it will also allow us to engage at a regional level for the climate funds like GZF as well as CHEF and other development funding bodies at a global level. Finally, we need to also develop mechanisms, innovative financing mechanisms, both at national as well as regional level. So the issues at the national level, I think we require to build upon, funding bodies. If it is applicable for the circumstances of the countries, we might develop a funding body that is exclusive for land-based ecosystems, so that all donors who are interested on conservation of land-based ecosystems can support only within that funding body at a national level. And then finally, if every single country can develop for these innovative finance mechanisms, then maybe later on we can leverage the same process on upscale at a regional level. So I think these are the issues that we can think at as a national level and as a regional level that we can contribute on land-based ecosystems. Thank you.
Thank you. I will come back to you still, Your Excellency. I am aware of the 10 million JEV adaptation fund which Somalia accessed, I think last year. And I understand very well that in a context like Somalia, with most of the misguided perception around Somalia as perhaps a failed or perhaps an almost poor example, but you were able to plug into these funds and access the funds even furthermore than countries that have the reputation of doing well countries. So that seems to be testament of your country's well-to-do policies and perhaps the vision on catalyzing land and ecosystem solutions. So I want you to perhaps shed light or highlight on what are those tenets, what were those criteria that earned Somalia that opportunity for that financing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very good question. Is it clear for my voice? Yeah, I think that's a very good question, actually. As we mentioned earlier, Somalia has established the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change for the first time. Before, we used to have what we call Directorate of Environment under the Prime Minister's office. So under the current administration of the current president, we have realized the importance of having a fully fledged ministry that can actually take the mandate of not only the nature-based solutions and the ecosystems, but in general, the issues of the environment as well as climate change issues at a national level. So that was the first commitment that Somalia has done actually after a long period of not having a very strong central government in the country. So that shows us exactly the commitment that the Somali community as well as their government are now showing to actually tackle the impact of climate change and also accessing the financing issues. So before we established the ministry, actually, we have realized that the international bodies and mobilizing this climate finance will not be possible unless we put in place a very strong ministry that will actually take the leadership of all these activities and take the mandate. With that regard, the president has shown a very strong commitment both to Somali nationals as well as international community to actually create the ministry for the first time. So actually that was the first commitment that we have. Second, to pursue our effort and our commitment, the Somali government, particularly for the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, has also put in place a very strong financial mechanisms, including the different fiducial systems and that can be trusted by different donors and can be channeled. So that will give us actually the platform and the ability to raise millions of dollars that we can, deal with the issues of the ecosystems in general in Somalia. And also the commitment that Somali people are also showing is also one of the things that actually contributed to make these things true. Thank you.
That's an excellent example from Somalia, and I think we're building around that. I'm really happy that we've been supporting Somalia at that level in pushing these policies to actually have a realizable capacity. And I will turn now to His Excellency Joe Abdullahi, Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Sierra Leone. Your Excellency Abdullahi, I understand from the AMCEN you've had very ambitious program around mangrove and blue economy development, as well as ecosystems restoration and strengthening to So like I said, Your Excellency Abdullahi, you have a robust vision on leveraging the assets and natural capital of your country, Sierra Leone, especially focusing on the marine or mangrove ecosystem, as well as offshore ecosystem, which is the land-based ecosystem. I want perhaps you to share with us key priority areas that needs urgent financing, and what you think that financing means to those or for those whom this policy is meant for. Thank you.
Okay, so before I get to where we'd like to go, let me just spend a couple of minutes of how we got where we are. Because we are or have been in a vicious cycle for a few decades now. And we sort of got tipped into that vicious cycle even before climate change became something that people talk about or have normal conversations about. And what that vicious cycle did is it tipped the relationships that our communities have with these ecosystems. For centuries and generations, our communities had symbiotic relationships with the marine ecosystems or with the terrestrial ecosystems, wherein the ecosystems provided services to the communities and the communities protected these ecosystems. But we got into a vicious cycle where instead of protecting these ecosystems as a way of benefiting from them, our communities have had to consume these ecosystems to benefit from them, because alternative sources of income dried up because of climate change. Now the question is, what's the way forward? What do we think needs to be done? As a country, we want to invest heavily in community-based restoration of our ecosystems, whether it means restoration of mangroves, reforestation, and the rationale is to change the behavior back to the way it was a few decades ago. And because we think that in doing so, opportunities are going to be created wherein our communities now benefit from the restored ecosystems, and they benefit from protecting the ecosystems. Now, for marine ecosystems, as you know, the mangroves provide a lot of benefits. They're breeding ground for all sorts of marine species, but they also happen to be, very efficient at carbon sequestration. And what we're looking at is programs that would lead to our communities not just benefiting from the traditional services that these ecosystems have provided for them, but also benefiting from carbon sequestration services, which these ecosystems have provided free of charge to the rest of the world for decades. Our goal is to start monetizing these services and plugging that revenue into these communities. Now, to do that, some of it may be public investment, some of it may be private investments, but all of these, what we're looking at is to make sure that the communities are at the center of managing these ecosystems, that the communities benefit, are the primary beneficiaries from protecting these ecosystems, because as long as it's in their economic interest to protect these ecosystems, they will do so. No one needs to tell them to protect them. And we think, I mean, we have a success story. This is not just some abstract concepts. One of our major forests in the eastern part of Sierra Leone, Gola Forest, which borders Liberia, is an example of a success story wherein the community benefits from protecting the ecosystem. We have a partnership with RSPB, which has worked for over a decade now and has grown to where they've gone through the RED Plus process, and the community is going to start selling carbon credits. And those carbon credits, the revenue from those carbon credits, first benefit the community, then a trust which is utilized for protecting other protected areas or for funding other protected areas before it even gets to the national government. But it's an example that this can be done if resources and investment are put into these sorts of restoration and protection efforts. What we're looking for are partnerships. Partnerships as in learning from other countries what they're doing so we can share ideas. Partnerships with organizations that are experts in the field of conservation, in the field of restoration, and funding, because a lot of this usually requires funding at the start. Once you get past a certain stage, then the projects just fund themselves, right? But there's a transitional period where you want to move from a destructive relationship that the communities have with these ecosystems to one where they protect these ecosystems. That transition from between these two states requires funding. So we're looking for partnerships, we're looking for funding, but we are committed. As we speak, we are in the process of doing a national forest inventory, so we know what we have, where it is, what's in it, what species are in it, what the state of these assets are. We will be reviewing our forestry laws as part of this to make sure that there are penalties that match the crimes for the endangered species that we have in a lot of our forests. But we're doing a lot of this work. What we need are partnerships, funding partnerships, technical partnerships, and we're open, to working with other countries and organizations that can help us to get where we want to go.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. This is purely inspiring because attitude, habits, and mindset contribute or constitutes very strong elements of any development system or development success, or in whatever way. Of course, investing on this mindset transformation, I consider it a huge model that really should be scaled across the continent, because it only takes communities that are aware of the importance of what restoration delivers to them and how much it ties to their lives for them to be connected, for them to be committed, for them to buy in. So I think this is a really great baseline for accelerating implementation, which I strongly agree with you, and also the fund, the trust fund, and the processes which you are bringing on board. I think they bring strong light to this conversation. I will be coming back to you, Your Excellency, but I want to take this very moment to recognize Zugulu from the Pan-African Agency, and I will request you, Zugulu, s'il vous plaît, pouvez-vous nous joindre ici en capacité de l'agence panafricaine, même si c'est 2 minutes. Il faut venir et puis vous pouvez, voilà. Ça c'est Zugulu Abaka de l'agence panafricaine de la Grande Muraille. Oui, d'accord, d'accord, bon. C'est bien. Monsieur de Djibouti, le directeur général de Djibouti est ici présent et on sait très clairement les efforts faits par le pays, la République djiboutienne, dans la restauration des terres dégradées et puis des efforts peut-être au niveau du charbon, n'est-ce pas? Financement de charbon. Donc je vais peut-être tourner vers vous pour demander quelles sont les priorités clés que le Djibouti investit pour mobiliser le financement pour la restauration des terres et aussi pour l'investissement du charbon. Et s'il y a déjà, comment vous pensez à utiliser ou bien à mettre ça en place pour que ça puisse donner des opportunités aux communautés? Merci. Très rapidement, 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Merci. Merci pour votre question. Merci pour cette invitation. Donc, je voulais commencer par un petit rappel de Djibouti. Djibouti est un pays de la Corne de l'Afrique, limitrophe avec l'Éthiopie, Érythrée et Somalie. C'est un pays du Sahel qui est particulièrement vulnérable aux effets néfastes du changement climatique, notamment les sécheresses récurrentes, les inondations et également l'élévation du niveau de mer. Donc, pour faire face à cet choc climatique, le gouvernement a mis en place plusieurs mesures pour contribuer à la réduction des émissions de gaz à effet de serre et également pour renforcer l'adaptation des populations et des écosystèmes. Donc, concernant la restauration des écosystèmes, la restauration des écosystèmes est une priorité au niveau national pour renforcer la résilience de la population et les écosystèmes, parce que la restauration, nous avons tous les programmes d'adaptation liés au changement climatique, il est axé en général sur 4 points clés. D'abord, avant de parler de la restauration des écosystèmes, les points importants que notre pays a mis en place, c'est de développer l'accès à l'eau et la protection contre les inondations. C'est-à-dire, une fois qu'on a l'accès à l'eau, on passe sur la restauration des écosystèmes, notamment les écosystèmes au niveau de la zone côtière. Nous avons restauré les mangroves qui ont contribué vraiment. Nous avons appris que la restauration des mangroves, c'est les points de départ de la vie aquatique même, parce qu'avant de faire la restauration, nous avons fait une étude de faisabilité, c'est-à-dire on a regardé combien d'espèces qu'on peut trouver sur la zone côtière. Les zones étaient quasiment vides, mais une fois qu'on a restauré les écosystèmes, on a constaté qu'il y a plus de vie, plus d'espèces aquatiques qui sont développées autour de ces périmètres. Donc la restauration des mangroves, elle contribue à la fois à l'adaptation au changement climatique, c'est-à-dire l'érosion côtière. Elle contribue aussi à la protection de la biodiversité. Et aussi, la restauration des mangroves contribue également à l'acidité de l'océan, c'est-à-dire lorsque dans l'océan, l'eau de mer, si la quantité de CO2 est élevée dans l'eau de mer, ça contribue à l'acidité de l'océan, ça contribue à l'ablanchissement du coraux, ça contribue à la perte de la biodiversité. Donc, la restauration de ces écosystèmes, mangroves, elle contribue à la réduction de l'acidité de l'océan, elle contribue à la fois à la réduction de l'ablanchissement du coraux et elle contribue à la fois à la protection de la biodiversité. Donc, la restauration des mangroves, aussi, elle contribue aussi à l'atténuation des émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Donc, cet aspect de restauration contribue à la fois à l'adaptation au changement climatique et à la fois à l'atténuation au changement climatique. Donc, cette activité est une priorité vraiment pour lutter contre les effets du changement climatique, pour réduire les émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Donc, dans les zones terrestres, nous avons également développé la restauration des acacias qui ont favorisé le développement de périmètres agro-pastoraux qui ont permis de réduire l'érosion, c'est-à-dire la restauration des acacias a contribué à développer l'agropastoralisme, a contribué à améliorer les moyens de subsistance de la population.
Merci, Monsieur le Directeur général. Je pense que c'est vraiment aussi très inspirant de savoir ce que les Djiboutiens sont en train de faire, surtout dans les zones Sahel. Je vais courir très vite à M. Zokoulou Abakar de l'Agence panafricaine de la Grande Muraille Verte, juste pour utiliser 2-3 minutes, chef Zokoulou. Vous êtes aux côtés d'où il y a besoin de restauration, il y a besoin de politique, il y a besoin, grand besoin, de renforcer les capacités des pays et aussi de renforcer des implications d'autres parties prenantes dans le système de restauration. Et il y a toujours besoin de financement. Donc, quels sont des besoins de financement très clairs que vous pensez que ça va vite et plus au long terme rentabilise des pays, surtout en cadre de la Grande Muraille Verte? Très rapidement, chef Zogoulou, 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Voilà, merci beaucoup. Je pense que... OK. Bien, c'est pas grave. Voilà, merci beaucoup, ambassadeur Tabi Joda. En tout cas, on vous remercie de nous avoir associés à cette discussion. C'est un débat très, très, très intéressant. Nos amis de la Somalie de Djibouti, qui sont pratiquement des membres fondateurs de l'initiative Grande Muraille Verte, participent déjà dans ce processus au niveau de la zone sahélienne. Mais cela est valable un peu dans toutes les régions du monde. Pour ce qui concerne donc la restauration, comme vous le savez, l'initiative Grande Muraille Verte est une volonté, disons, politique et un élément qui permet de répondre à une situation très précise de la vulnérabilité des populations vivant vraiment dans des zones très difficiles. Nous avons pensé et réfléchi à un modèle de gestion que nous supposons durable des terres arides et semi-arides. Les changements climatiques, ce n'est pas une fatalité. Il faudrait qu'on les prenne comme étant un facteur naturel qui est arrivé et auquel il faut répondre. Et la réponse, c'est peut-être celle qui consiste à unir les peuples. Au-delà, actuellement, on dit la Grande Muraille Verte, c'est les pays. Mais au-delà des pays, il faut que, comme disait mon ami Gora Diop du Sénégal, il faut aller vers la Grande Muraille Verte des peuples. Et en matière donc de restauration, il faut, c'est vrai, des financements. Il faut des financements, mais les financements également, il ne faut pas les considérer comme étant une fin en soi. Vous pouvez avoir beaucoup de financements, mais si vous n'avez pas l'alchimie nécessaire pour faire de la restauration, ça devient également un problème. Donc il faudrait avoir des financements durables. Nous avons développé un certain nombre de mécanismes financiers, comme la banque GMV Carbone, qui doit être opérationnalisé grâce à l'appui de la Banque africaine de développement. C'est un élément qui permet l'autofinancement. Et ça, pour nous, c'est important. Nous avons également développé un mécanisme qu'on appelle le Fonds d'adaptation et de résilience au changement climatique et au développement économique local. Parce que très souvent, on oublie que pour faire de la bonne restauration, il faut impliquer les populations à la base. Notre slogan, c'est par les populations et pour les populations. Il faudrait qu'on arrive justement à arriver vers les populations pour qu'elles soient actrices. Et enfin, je dirais que par rapport à la restauration, nous avons besoin également de l'inclusivité. La Grande Muraille Verte ne peut pas se construire avec des services simplement étatiques. Il faudrait qu'on le comprenne. Il y a le caractère multisectoriel, il y a le caractère écosystémique et surtout le caractère inclusif. Les ONG, les associations de la société civile apportent plus que les États sur le terrain. Et les financements doivent aller vers ces entités-là pour permettre à ce que ça soit le plus développé le plus possible. Donc encore une fois, je pense que c'est un débat très important. Le financement, c'est bien, mais le mettre là où il faut, c'est encore mieux. Donc c'est un peu sur cet élément-là que je voudrais m'arrêter, comme je dois continuer sur un autre pavillon pour une autre activité. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, thank you very much, Zugulu Abaka, bringing perspectives from the Pan-African Agency of the Great Green Wall, and of course highlighting that financing is important, but financing must be meant for whom financing is actually, needed to mean for. Because if financing doesn't mean development, if it doesn't mean livelihood enhancement, if it doesn't mean security for communities, it is not worth being financing. So I think very quickly, just housekeeping, please, there is lunch immediately after this session. So kindly endeavor to wait back and pick a pack from the corridors. I think my dear brother here, Vincent, will perhaps guide on that, or Edith. Okay, Edith's around. So I'm going to come to you, Catherine. You as an expert within this space, you've provided a lot of support at regional as well as global level on accessing resources and knowledge on restoration. I'm building that perhaps from the new strategy on the Great Green Wall, which I understand we've had elaborate conversations around it. So what will you, we have all the directors of the Great Green Wall agencies here, perhaps all, and we have key stakeholders working on the land and ecosystem restoration value chain. And here we are at the junction of financing. Does every financing means financing? That's one question for you. Does every financing just mean financing? What are the kind of financing that you think are necessary for driving real-time action or action that delivers holistic impact at the most necessary level? That is one question. Then the second question for you also is, what will you perhaps advise the member states who are sitting here on how to accelerate financing in a way that it delivers, on key development priorities, irrespective of the fact that we are talking about ecosystems?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I was just invited this morning, so I didn't really come prepared, but I'm more than pleased to be here. And that's a really loaded question, both of them are, because I must say that it is an obstacle that everybody has to encounter on every project I've come across. First of all, I will give a few words about my background. I am part of the Canadian delegation, Catherine Tokes. I lead Tokes Consulting. Through my work, I've had the opportunity to visit several countries in Africa, to attend, participate at conferences, and I have stayed in contact with the participants and the representatives of these countries. And they are also, every one of them are always saying that, yes, they do have great projects, and I contribute to them myself with several solutions, innovative technologies that I have direct access to. But financing is definitely an obstacle. through my Canadian counterparts, one of the organizations has recommended that we, who have access to different ways of accessing funds, we want to help the countries and the representatives from these countries with preparing their proposals, because a proposal has to be well done. It has to be, otherwise it is not accepted. So this is what we are starting to prepare for, to group together. And what we're also thinking of is to propose artificial intelligence. That is, there are platforms, there are software where you put in the information that you have, that you want to express in your document, and with the push of a button, it actually comes up with a solution, with a prepared document, and then you can personalize it or customize it to your needs. But definitely, I agree that financing is a major obstacle. And if I can also mention that I am also president of Blue Planet Water. We have a technology that generates water from the atmosphere, and we can place it where the need is. And so through that work, I have, and having attended COP conferences for several years now, I have come across several organizations, and there are many, who are actually waiting for proposals, and some of them actually support projects up to $10 million. But once again, going back to the proposal, it has to be well prepared, and that's where I can help, and I would be more than happy to help.
Hello. Thank you very much, Catherine Talk. I think I totally agree with you. Proposal is the baseline. And I think that's why the new strategy for the Great Green Wall is going to be a huge success, because we've worked elaborately on that. Please kindly rise to recognize the presence of His Excellency, the Governor of Niger State. Please kindly help us to rise for him. Your Excellency, please, please. Yes, please, you have to be here. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for that. So I turn very quickly to you, Baron. You're welcome, Your Excellency. With us earlier, I introduced His Excellency, Right Honorable Mohamed Umar Bago, this Governor of Niger State, the biggest state in Nigeria, by the way. And you can see he's a very young and smart guy, and we wait to hear from him. But I go straight to you, Baron. Okay. You are the chief expert at UNCCD and understand very well, building from COP15, we had very ambitious outcome which highlighted the accelerated need on moving from the talks on land and ecosystem assets and policies into implementation, if I'm correct. And you are the chief scientist. Building on that and looking up to COP16, how well have we gone in delivering on those commitments? And how much do we need to go in terms of leveraging those opportunities that can support nations, support sub-national level governments in accelerating implementation of ecosystem or land ecosystem policies and strategies to achieve those commitments? Thank you. Very quickly, Baron, if you can give me 10 minutes maximum.
Super.
Thank you.
Well, Ambassador Tabi, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Your Excellencies and esteemed guests, I'm a professor, so I'm going to ask for your attention. I'm going to ask you a question to start this off. And that question is, what is the connection between most people and climate change? Be brave. What is the connection between you and climate change? And almost everybody in your countries. It's right beneath your feet. It's land. It's the key. And that's where this convention comes in, and the two COPs that were mentioned. If it is healthy, and that means our soils and vegetation are a sink for carbon. And when carbon is in our soils and vegetation, Carbon is life. It's no longer the enemy. It's on our side of the equation. Our lands are the source of all life on Earth, and we have in our country 608 million farming families waiting for our governments to treat those families as enterprises and to put them in the position to actually overcome the startup costs, to go organic, and to actually put that carbon back in our soils. That's the key. That's what makes all of this happen. For those people, climate change, biodiversity loss, and land degradation are never considered separately. It's only us at the global and national levels that silo this. And in this convention, we've given up that silo a long time ago. Everything we do is about being intersectoral, as was mentioned here, is about communities, is about working across the objectives of all the conventions. If we do that, we can address multiple goals. Our last COP, as was mentioned by Ambassador Tabi, was in Abidjan, where parties enshrined these basic principles and decisions that have given us the mandate to work synergistically, not only across implementation ministries like agriculture and environment, but also finance and planning ministries, so that synergies among the Rio conventions and the related finance mechanisms can be realized. We are working with countries to help align, which in our space are called land degradation neutrality targets, with their NDCs, with their NAPs, with their MBSAPs in the Biodiversity Convention, and helping them ensure that all of this aligns with Africa's climate change strategy. Our parties provided us the opportunity to work across sectors and develop large-scale, transformative, and integrated programs. This requires in-country coordination, and this is the message to all of you, across your ministries, across your GEF focal points, your GCF focal points. We need to be working together to make this happen. And you know, if you make this investment in land, you're going to be addressing climate change, biodiversity loss, same time. To put it into practice, we are now rolling out the second phase of the land degradation neutrality target setting program. And this is focused on getting real to the very specific locations on the ground where we're doing business, so that we can actually optimize what we do where, growing food in the right locations, protecting biodiversity where it is, mitigating climate change, protecting our water supply. This is far more strategic than ever before. And as was mentioned about the Great Green Wall, it's a mosaic of collaboration. We're no longer in the Great Green Wall worrying about crops over here and another project worrying about rangeland restoration, when herders and pastoralists who used to be friends are now fighting. Now these are integrated so that the benefits, the value chains, can actually benefit everyone, and we can get past these bottlenecks. Other bottlenecks include aligning national policies, which was mentioned several times by our speakers. It's about recognizing that safeguarding land tenure, giving these families the opportunity to give that land to their children, which then motivates them to do the right thing. It's about recognizing that land degradation is correlated with gender inequality, and land restoration success is correlated with providing equality. These are the bottlenecks that our decisions in COP15 have pushed us towards addressing. And finally, through this integrated approach, we feel that our conservation efforts, our sustainable agriculture efforts, and all of these land restoration initiatives that we've been talking about can go transboundary. We can get our hydrology goals, our biodiversity goals, our poverty alleviation goals working together with these finance mechanisms to think big and to make a big difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Baron. You're not only a baron in, in name, you're also a baron in land restoration. So I quite appreciate very much your intervention. I will call now Elvis Paul, the coordinator of the Great Green Wall, who will do the last, perhaps, not the least, intervention very quickly to provide a holistic intervention from the framework of the Great Green Wall. What does this mean to all of us, and where are we heading to, given that the Great Green Wall is Africa's biggest flagship program and provides most of the on-the-field policy level at all regional, sub-regional levels to scale land ecosystem restoration. Please, Elvis, if you have 5 minutes for you, please.
Yes. Thank you very much, Tabi, and Your Excellency, the Governor, Darrell, all our colleagues, Your Excellency, the Minister for Environment for Sierra Leone. Thank you very much for being here. For, our Minister from Somalia, thank you for being here. Our sister there from Canada, Catherine, thank you. And all of you in the hall, we're very happy that you are here today. I think talking about the mobilization of financing for land-based carbon sinks and resilience to support the climate change strategy on the continent, I think that lies at the key of what we are doing here in Dubai. Resource mobilization has been the weakest point in our combat against climate change. And if it is weakest in the world, and then Africa is the weakest of the weak point when it comes to receiving and getting the kind of funding that we need. I think recent data shows that Africa is getting less than 5% of all the climate change funding. And there have been this, what I call a very deceptive approach of telling Africa to focus on adaptation. I don't know why, when we have all the mitigation potential, more than anywhere, we have the biggest carbon sinks in the world after, they say after the Amazon, but I'm not so sure because the Amazon is really being degraded now. I think the Congo Basin remains one of the biggest things. So the whole issue of financing, especially the whole narrative about adaptation and mitigation is something that we really need to look about. When it comes to the Great Green Wall program, which is a sustainable land management and restoration program, the Great Green Wall started 2007. And after more than 15 years of implementation, the model has been recognized as one of the best models for sustainable land management on a large scale. As we speak here in UAE, we've been having a lot of discussion with the Middle East Greening Initiative. We have a lot of discussions with other countries and other regions that want to lay down foundation based on the whole idea of a Great Green Wall. So this year, after about a decade and a half of implementation, we looked into what we have been able to achieve, the millions of hectares of land that have been restored, the thousands of sustainable green jobs that have been created, and the level of impact that we've been able to do in the community, but also the huge challenges that we have faced over the past 1.5 decades of implementation of the Great Green Wall. And we also look at the emerging challenges on the continent. And so the ministers requested in 2019 that we develop a new strategy for the Great Green Wall after putting after the assessment that was done. And we just launched the Great Green Wall. It was adopted a few weeks ago by the Ministers of Environment. And the whole idea is to look at the issues of what are some of the key emerging issues that are either hindering the implementation of the Great Green Wall and some of the emerging opportunities that are there for us to leverage on to be able to boost and enhance implementation. So we identify key issues like increasing climate change impact. We identify key issues like the issues of migration, the issues of conflict, the issues of extreme violence and gender-based violence. And so we are working very closely now to see how we can dissect and work on each of these key challenges that we have identified, but of course still basing our implementation on the idea of sustainable land management and restoration on the continent. One other thing that we've done so far is the extension of the Great Green Wall from the Sahara and Sahel to the Southern Africa region. So the 16 countries of the Southern Africa region are now part of the whole Pan-African Great Green Wall, and the reception has been great, and we are working with all these 16 countries, with UNCCD, with the FAO, with the Southern Africa Development Community Secretariat, where we are working very closely to enhance and to bring the gap, this gap that existed between the Sahel, the Sahara, and the Southern Africa drylands. So it's the challenge, of course, remains issues of financing, but we are working on it. The good thing is that many of our key financial partners believe in the Great Green Wall, and we are hoping and working to ensure that within the next, by 2030, we have achieved the 100 million hectares of land, and that by 2063, we have achieved the 900 million hectares of land that we are targeting. So on that note, maybe we'll have time to talk more, just to give you a summary of what we are doing now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Thank you so much for bringing those perspectives. Unfortunately, I'm cutting you short because the technical discussions will follow after this high-level session. But I really trust that we will all bear that time has not really been on our side. But I am going to follow up with one-minute key deliverables from each one of your Excellencies. But let me take this occasion now to invite His Excellency, Right Honorable Muhammad Umaru Bago, the one man with a very amazing vision that you all need to know and perhaps see how a young African leader is rising with the impetus needed for this continent's sustainable growth and prosperity. This is not a joke. Just check what is happening in Niger State in Nigeria, the first green economy initiative anywhere in the continent. So does it deserve a very big round of applause or not? So I now welcome you, Your Excellency, to deliver your keynote address.
Thank you very much, Tabi. That was flattering, but let me just take it there. Excellencies, good afternoon. I have a very long speech here, but I think, Professor, you've summarized the presentation here, or the paper here, because you've spoken very well about what is the connection between humanity and climate change. Land. What do we have as a people in Africa? Land. Ungoverned land. Ungoverned forest. So the symbiotic relationship or the dichotomy between what all of us here at the COP are talking about the initiative for, number one, issue of, just a second, conservation and mitigation. The focus is mostly on conservation, not mitigation. And Africa is worse hit by the activities of carbon emission. Africa has less than 1% of the total emission globally. So the dichotomy should be balanced. And we're here to discuss those issues. So if we must exist or coexist as human beings, as a world, focus must be on Africa. And Africa, Nigeria, has 300 million people. The largest congregation of the black people in the world is Nigeria. Niger State is 10% of that in terms of land size. So we have brought ourselves forward to pilot the green evolution and the initiative to forestall and protect this continent. Beam our searchlight on Niger State and Nigeria and Africa. So I'm very, very happy to have been given the opportunity to be here today to talk about the subject of climate change and Africa and financing. What percentage of financing globally is in Africa? Insignificant. The Scandinavia, the Europe, the Americas have huge emission. And we are concentrating in adaptation, investing in adaptation in these areas instead of mitigation. We balance the ecosystem. I have a national park that is 540,000 hectares of land. I'm sitting as a state on 8.3 million hectares of land. Just 2% of it is occupied by human beings. Every other thing in that state is natural. I have two big rivers, River Kaduna and River Niger. Nobody understands the advantage of that is balancing the ecosystem. The Colorado River was valued to be $56 billion US. I have 4 times the size of Colorado River. Why are you not looking at that? And this is not just Niger State, this is Nigeria, this is Africa. Everything about us is there. So we are balancing the ecosystem, but we are not getting in return that carbon exchange. So we are here today to talk to everybody in the world to understand that COP29 should be focused on Africa, on mitigation. Focus on Africa, on mitigation. As a state, Niger State, we are very ambitious, and we are taking the initiative as a subnational in Nigeria to drive the evolution to green and clean economy. The blue economy, the green economy, that is all about climate change. We don't have a single industry that emits anything in Niger State. Rather, we have more plantation for sugarcane, for soya, for rice, for corn, poultry, fishing, aquaculture, animal husbandry. The largest congregation of animals in the world are in Nigeria. So when you talk about the farmer-herder clashes, yes, it's real. When people who used to live harmoniously are challenged because of space, the farmers and the herders are clashing. Communal clashes And nobody is looking at that as an issue. We are worried about it's supposed to stop snowing, and it's snowing. It's supposed to stop raining, and it's raining in December. This is Christmas. No Santa Claus anymore because of climate change. It's worrisome. It's not worrisome to me in Africa, no. Because I have rains, 9 months of rains. The overflow from my rains in Africa is balancing the ecosystem, but no value addition. My brothers and sisters from South Africa are worse hit because they are the lower part of Africa. When the ice melts from the Scandinavia, it goes straight to the oceans, so that it's poor. For the first time, we had a hurricane in South Africa. Unprecedented of Africa. It's not in our nature, but it's global change, global climate change. So as a state, with 8.3 million hectares of land, we are positioned to plant 1 billion trees on 1 million hectares of land. What is this to global economy of climate change? It means we are positioned to balance the ecosystem for highest emission nations. We are talking to Dubai, to Saudi Arabia, to the Arabian. They are ravaged with a lot of afforestation or deforestation because they are struggling to plant in afforestation, and they spend billions of dollars to plant just flowers in the garden when I'm busy cutting them off. So I want to provide a nursery for you, resilience. When they get to a level, at 10% cost, I bring it back to you, your plant, and they keep growing. So the 1 billion trees is to the position Africa, Nigeria, and also Niger State in this global map of climate change. Secondly, globally, people don't understand that the major challenge of agriculture, food security, which our president has made a focal point in his agenda for governance, food security. You come to Dubai, you go to the mall, you see banana. You cannot plant banana in Europe or in America. It's either South America or Africa. Tropical fruits. So why wouldn't you venture into agriculture? Why wouldn't we venture into land clearance? Because 80% of the challenges in Africa in terms of agriculture is land clearance. We need machinery. We need technology. We need science. We need innovation to produce for this world food. We need attention as a continent. We need attention as a country. We need attention as a subnational. We'll create employment. We'll create carbon credit. We'll create cash crops. It's tripartite. So let me not bore you too much with my presentation, but let me say, the transition for energy should start from Africa, because Africa is a green field, not a brown field. Thank you for listening. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. At least I didn't exaggerate, did I? Thank you very much for trusting my earlier comments. So this meeting is actually for member states. And member states have a huge priority here. And we have heard from a member state, a subnational government. We are already at our closing time. Please, I'm going to give Sudan 1 minute to highlight. 1 minute, please. Very 1 minute, brief, please. Quickly, come on, Fatima from Sudan, please. Or you take the mic.
Good afternoon, Excellencies, for this very important meeting. I think the situation of Sudan is very complex situation in this recent time because of the climate change, the conflict which is historically created by the competition over resources and especially land. We have abundant resources, but these killings and this multi-hazard situation puts the country in a very difficult situation. I am happy to meet with GAFE and other donors so as to support our country because not losing all these resources and leaving our people in a very vulnerable situation and very fragile situation. Thank you. I think, as I said, historically, this ongoing conflict now is because of the competition over resources, especially rural areas, which are expected to be the great contributors in food security in the country. Now we have about 5.2 million displaced to other areas from cities. When we come to the gender inequality, especially on the ownership of resources and decision makings, we find that in these areas which are abundant for resources, they face some problems. And I'm glad that in the logo there is a gender issue. If agenda is not in gender, we will be in danger. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Fatima. You have been a vocal voice for many years, and your works are well known. I will give to the last speaker, Khadija El Rufai. I'll give you 1 minute just to highlight on what the federal government has as way forward around this subject or on this subject. Thank you very quickly.
Good afternoon, everyone. I promise I won't keep you too long away from your lunch. My name is Rukaya El-Wafai, and I'm the Special Advisor to our President on National Economic Council and Climate Change, of which we have one of the proud members here. I must start by commending Niger State. I remember when I saw your Green Economy Summit, and I was very excited, having come from a private sector background, doing a lot around sustainability and climate change. So for Nigeria, as you all know, we pledged to be net zero by 2050. This we have backed by recently launching our low emission strategy plan. We had the Climate Change Act that was also passed 2 years ago. We have a council. And, everything we're trying to do with trying to ensure it alleviates poverty, really tackles our climate vulnerabilities, and also create jobs, local manufacturing, local content, harnessing on the comparative advantages we have. Nigeria is so diverse. There are very peculiar climate vulnerabilities facing the different states of the Federation. And of course, energy is a big part of the discussion. We have the energy transition plan that we have done. But we have realized, and especially with the constrained fiscal space we're having and the economic challenges back home, inflation is not alien to us as well. We recently removed fuel subsidies. So you can imagine the hardship, the risk of pushing more people into poverty. And of course, given the agrarian nature, nature-based solutions is at the very heart of our strategy, and also local climate action. And that's why if you look at my portfolio, it's the National Economic Council on Climate Change, so it's to ensure that whatever we do, how we develop, it's green and inclusive. And, of course, besides the Great Green Wall, I know many states are actually embarking on empowering people with economic trees, and also, to just help with even replanting degraded land with economic trees, and private sector is not left behind in this. So having understood the potential to accelerate our climate action, the president at this COP just announced the inauguration of a committee that would help to unlock our carbon markets. And, we are aware of all the pledges being made besides the Green Climate Fund, even ATERA and all that. So we are aware of all the potential pool of capital. And I was so excited to hear about what you have to offer on packaging the business case, because we looked at this like 2 years ago to ask why are Nigerian companies and Nigerian states and sovereigns not able to access these pools of capital. Because climate is science. It's really science, and whatever you do, if you don't make a compelling case of how you're going to affect women and how you're going to really create jobs and alleviate poverty, your proposal won't go anywhere. So we are very serious to reposition, and Nigeria and reposition, also support to reposition states, create the incentive and enabling landscape through unlocking our carbon markets to ensure that we also accelerate from our own end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, please permit me to close this session in the hope that this is an ongoing conversation that we will all take up together, because if there is any time that Africa needed to catalyze effort and action on mobilizing financing for ecosystem restoration and carbon sink, no other time but now. And the high-level comments have indicated the urgency and the preparedness and readiness from across all the board. So I will use this opportunity to say thank you very much. Madame et Messieurs, s'il vous plaît, nous allons fermer cette session à ce moment, juste pour peut-être donner l'opportunité aux ceux qui sont dehors, qui sont en attendant. Et je vais vous inviter pour nous joindre le VIP au bureau NEPAD en haut pour le lunch. Et puis, Monsieur le ministre et d'autres panélistes high level, désolé que nous allons plus prendre votre dernier point de vue, mais en peut-être pensant que nous allons continuer cette discussion en marche. Donc, merci beaucoup et bonne journée. Thank you very much. We have a photo session and we close. Thank you very much.